recording. All right, welcome to Inkscape. For those of you not sure what Inkscape is a drawing program. Basically, it's like Photoshop, but free, which is, good. So for one of the things we don't want our paper like this. We want to rotate it so it's in landscape. So to rotate the paper, right, what we're going to do is we're going to go up to File, and then there's a button. If you go down File, it's something that says Document Properties. So you click on the Document Properties button, and it props up this prompt that tells you that's the type of paper and like all that kind of bit. It defaults to A4, which is sort of like an international standard of paper. What we're going to use is US letter paper because we're in the US and that's the standard paper in the US if you want to print it, and then we're going to change it from portrait. We're going to change it to landscape, right? So your paper should look like this if you've done it. Now, once you have it in landscape, the other thing it really helps is to have a grid. By having a grid, it helps you plan out how your ride is gonna fit to the scale, right? So I'm gonna just make a grid. There's like a little grid button over in the display properties. Like page is the first tab for the display property document properties. So I'm gonna go to the grid tab, then I'm gonna go to new. And then I got to make sure a couple of things, right? So the unit I want to use centimeters because we like centimeters. They're not too big, not too small. They're just right. And we're going to make it spacing. I'm just going to make it 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter would be my grid, right? So that would be the grid that'll fit my paper. Okay. Let me make sure I've got the right units for the page. We want it not in inches. It's good to keep everything in, let's go with, I guess centimeters is a good choice for everything, right? So we got centimeters. Yeah, that looks like it should hopefully work out fine, right? So centimeters, grid is in centimeters, everything's in centimeters, great. Now, next we want to plan out our space for our roller coaster. So I don't know, maybe make a box, like a little box you want to put your roller coaster in. And we want to make our size, right? So if I look at the example, so this is the example of a rough sketch. If you did a rough sketch, yours might look something like what I'm about to paste in. So I'm just going to copy. And then I'm going to put this right next to it just so I can have a reference. Paste, right? And move this guy around so you can see it, right? So this is my rough sketch, right? It's just a big mess, right? So it's got, but the important thing you need is we need to pick some spots on the rough sketch for us to kind of plan out what how the final one's going to fit. So for example, I picked a spot at the top. I said it's 80 meters high, so the Y value is 80 meters, right? I don't know if you guys recall, but when we talk about math, usually when you write coordinates, it's kind of like X, comma, Y. You guys have seen that before, right? So one way you could represent it is you could write it as like, X comma Y, 40 comma 80, or you could write it like X1 is equal to 40 meters and Y1 is equal to 80 meters. That's another option you could do. Just a possibility for you, right? Questions so far? No? Should be straightforward. So we want to kind of plan this out. So I know based on this drawing that I want to make this thing, if that's going to be 40 and this is going to be like 200, maybe I'll make it like 250, right? So I'll make the box 250. So one thing I need to do is I need to make a scale. So maybe I'll make it so that, let's see if hopefully I've got enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. That'll just fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my scale, and I'm going to set my scale. 1 centimeter is going to be equal to 10 meters, not 110 meters. 10 meters. This way, I can basically say each box is 10 meters. Derek, you have a question?
Yes, I didn't chat.
Okay, if the point we choose wasn't part of a loop, how do we find the centripetal acceleration? You have a radius. You could pick a radius for it if it's got a curve, right? Although it's not a real big issue if it's at the bottom of a curve, except if the speed is too high. But really, it's not that important. It's really
like
more if you're in a loop is really where I care the most. So if you don't want to worry about that for curves that are not in a loop, don't worry about it. Okay.
okay.
Let's make this a little smaller so it's not so taking up all this space, right? So we got a scale. Next, I'm gonna maybe put in a place where I can draw this thing. So what I could do is there's this little thing called a Bezier curve, which basically is just allows us to make straight lines. So I just kind of have at it, right? So we'll just say, put this in the middle, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 is the height. So I think around here should be good. Start here, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 80, 90, 200, 210, 220, 230, 240, 250, 250. Ta-da! And then we got a line, right? You might want to make little marks in there just to kind of like, you could put this as like, say, 0 meters, right? Just kind of shift it around a little bit, copy. Actually, this also has to be a lot smaller. So take this guy, take that, shrink it down. It defaults to such a large size. I think that's about good, 14. Shrink it a little closer so I can see what I'm doing. So this will be 0. Put this guy at 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Maybe every 50 meters is probably fine. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Make another 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Move it over a little bit. Make another 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And one last one, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Right? Then I'm going to go back and I'll just change each one. So this guy is 50, 100, 150, 200, and 250. Right. Make sure it's actually in the same line, right? 5, 10, 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, center it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, center it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, center it. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, center it. Right. So basically what I did was I just created kind of like a graph paper graph, right? Next, I'm going to make a vertical. So I can make another curve, right? Where's my curvy thing? This here curve. Where are you, curve? Right there. So we go here, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. Let's just make it up to 100 just so we know them. I'll leave it at 80. That's the highest it's going to go anyway, right? And I'll just close that and then put in another couple of, heck, I just kind of steal it, right? 50. So this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And then just put a little 80 at the top, right? Like so. Okay, I'll take a look at that in 1 second, Nina. It could have been a mistake, always possible, right? Yeah. Oh, 2,500. You're absolutely right, Nina. Thank you for the catch. 250. Right. So any questions so far? Pretty straightforward. Not so bad, right? So now what we're going to do is I'm going to create this same thing, hopefully over here. Now this is, I've only done this once before. It's a little tricky to do, but Watch where we're going. I'm going to use the same thing. I'm going to use the little Bezier curve. And I'm going to use basically the same process I did to make these lines, but I'm just going to put them at the different spots. All right. So I'm going to put 1 at 0, 0. Right. That's a start. Then the next one I'm going to put at 40. So 40 and 50, 60, 70, 80. And then the next one I'm going to put at is 80 comma 0, right? So 50, 60, 70, 80 comma 0. And then the next one is at 100 comma 60, right? So 100 comma 50, 60. And then the next one is at 150 comma 0. And then the next one is at 240, 210, 20, 30, 40. And then just to close it out, I'm going to put one last one down here. And then I close it, right? Okay, so you may look at that and be like, well, that doesn't look like a roller coaster. It looks like a bunch of, it looks like a bunch of just these kind of things. But this is really what the cool thing you do with Inkscape. Watch this, right? So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to adjust the curve. So you can edit the paths by shifting what it looks like. So all I'm going to do is, one thing you want to note is, watch what I can do. I can just kind of bend it around. You can kind of bend the shape a little bit, right? So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to change it, because you see how it kind of like gets stuck? It's getting stuck at like certain spots. It's because basically what I'm doing is I'm moving one of the nodes that this thing attaches to, and it's kind of jumping from box to box to box. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off enable snapping. It's the tool that I used is called a Bezier curve. That's the curve, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of get in here. Now that I've turned off snapping, hopefully the theory is this should kind of smooth everything out. So I can kind of smooth that down a little bit, maybe rotate that out a little bit. Oh, this is super steep, not ideal. I'm going to kind of swing that guy out a little bit, maybe pull this one in a little bit. Maybe pull that up a smidge, pull that up a smidge, right? Like so. And then this guy going to come down. He's going to come into a curve. So I want to curve you down a little bit so it looks more like a curve. And then it's going to come up and it's going to loop around. So this guy is going to come down like so, loop. And actually, I'm going to pull them all the way over here. I'm going to pull it all the way over to this side, and then pull that all the way over to that side. Huh? Isn't that kind of cool? And then I can shift this up a smidgen. I can shift that up a little bit. Now, I know I want a radius. So this radius, let's say I want the radius to be about 10. So I would kind of set it up so that that curvature, as best I can, should come to like a 10. It's a little tricky to pull off, but you can kind of mess around with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just kind of shift this guy a little bit, shift that a little bit. Just play around with it a little bit. There's no, you're not, I'm not looking for perfection here. It just should look somewhat like a roller coaster, right? Shift this guy down a little bit. Shift this guy a little bit. Shift that guy up a smidge. Shift that guy up a little smidgen. And there you go. A scale drawing of a roller coaster that works. I mean, it doesn't really have to be any more than that. I mean, if you want to mess with this a smidgen and like make sure that the curve is a little more curvy, proportional, you can just play with it a little bit. If you want this to be a little more smooth, you can smoothen it out. There's a lot of wiggle room here that you could do to just kind of make it look. But this guy should do the trick. That should fit like that. It goes like this. Yeah, it's good enough. Any questions? Right, so I really highly recommend it. I mean, Inkscape, the fact that it actually worked today, it gives a perfect scale diagram. The height is at 80 meters and where I planned them out to be, and it actually now is all to scale compared to what this first diagram was. Any other questions or wonderings about Inkscape? No? Yes, Gabriella?
Is it okay that like you see how the loop it doesn't really look like a circle? Is it okay if it looks like that?
That's fine. They don't have to be circular. In fact, if you look at most roller coaster loops, they're not circular. The reason why they're not circular, and I mean, we could put a circle in if we wanted to, although this is now like this will take more time to do. You could put a circle in there, but the problem is that essentially in a real roller coaster, you want different parts to have like the side. You don't need much. You don't want that much centripetal acceleration. You want a lot of acceleration near the top. So you really do want to kind of have it more like not circular. You want it to be kind of like a really peak of it right here. Now this guy, I kind of wish he was a little different. I got to kind of play with him a little more. You want this to be sort of like a smooth transition through the top. So it might take a little bit of work. And if it's not a perfect circle, it's perfectly fine. I mean, really all you want is that you could say that if I had placed a circle, why can't I just make a circle that's like, I want to make a circle that's like blank on the inside. Is there a way to do that? Let's see, fill. I haven't really messed around with circles too much. So we can make the, this is not helpful. No, we don't want to fade it. Well, maybe this will be good enough, right? So you could kind of see where if this fits that curvature like up there, you could see that the distance from here to here is like the radius of about 10 meters. You know, like if the circle fits to there, that's the radius at that location, which is perfectly fine, right? And you don't even need to have this little fake circle in here. Is not needed at all you got to do is, somewhere on the sheet indicate that, the radius R was equal to, 10 meters. I'm handwriting it, but you could, type it or whatever you want to do. Okay. All right. So I want to give you some time right now. You can work on Inkscape if you want to use Inkscape. And I mean, notice it wasn't that hard to do. I mean, I thought that was a lot easier to do than trying to do this by hand with a ruler and a protractor personally, but you know. You can either work in Inkscape or you could work on a piece of paper and with a ruler, whatever you'd like to do. Work on finishing up that final cut. Or get if you're not up to the final scaled sketch, keep working on the roller coaster. I'm going to put you in smaller groups again, and then if you guys run into trouble or you need some help, just give me a shout out and I'll come help you out. Okay? Any questions? Alrighty. I'm going to stop the recording.